So we're going to start this evening with a internalization exercise. At the end of this exercise, I'm going to put some questions before you, and then we'll get into the conversation that we've come here to discuss today. Okay? So I ask that you follow your breath as you're gently turning your attention within. Breathing in nice and deep. Breathing into the stomach. Just like when you see a baby sleeping very peacefully, you will notice that its stomach is what rises and collapses, not the chest. When you begin to breathe deep like this, your body begins to relax. Now I want you to gently turn your attention beneath the skin, underneath the flesh, at the very core of the bones. There's an energy there. And there's that energy that flows from the top of your head down through the core channel of your body into your feet. And that's the energy that keeps the body alive. This is the life force. I want you to notice at the very tips of your toes if there's any sensation right now. Wiggle your toes if you need to, but I want you to feel the tips of your toes. And if you can feel your toes, that means there's energy there. I want you to gradually let that energy flow, sensation can be realized through the foot, to the back of the foot, the heel. Feel your heel in contact with the ground. Rising up through the ankle, feel the energy as it flows through the shins to your knees. Feel your knees right now. Flowing up through the thighs to the back. Feel the point of contact where your back is resting against this chair. Gradually follow this energy through the spine, up past the stomach, the chest, the shoulders, feel the tips of your fingers right now. Let's start with the tips of the fingers and feel the sensation that's there. Gradually through the palms, feel the energy go through the wrists, up to the elbows. And then gradually up the elbows to the shoulders, And from both sides of the shoulders, follow the energy. It goes inwards towards the neck, up the neck, into the head, from the back of the head to the top of the head. To the front of the head. Feel the center of all thought activity in this body. Feel the center of all memories. Feel the center of my entire being of consciousness. Notice how relaxed you feel right now. Notice the slow pace of your thoughts. From this place, I want you to answer a few questions for yourself. Where do you feel the felt sense of presence in the body? What happens to time in this state of being? Number 3, does the being need anything right now? Number 4, does the being need any knowing to be complete? The last question is, does the being need to do anything to be complete? Thank you. So could I get some sharing on your responses to these questions at the end of our meditation? Number 1, where is the felt sense of being in the body? I'm asking you.
Head.
You feel it in the head, okay? Anything else?
Within the center?
Center, somewhere near the throat, okay, all right. What happens to time when you're in that state?
Goes faster.
Goes faster. What does that mean? That means time fades away, it starts becoming irrelevant, huh? Then what happens to the need of that being? Do you need anything to be complete? No?
Full breath.
Yeah? At that state, you're even beyond the breath. The breath is automatic. It goes on autopilot. If you get into that state where the being is beyond the needs of the body at that point. Does the being need any knowing to be complete? You need to go and acquire some wisdom at that moment when you're feeling present?
Immersion.
No. What happens to, does the being need to do anything to feel full? No. So folks, that's it. You graduated. You all know the science of meditation. Now just go do it. 15 minutes into the session, you've got your money's worth. We're all happy. All right, so I've got a few things I want to cover with you today. I'm going to talk to you about the grounding. We just did that. And the reasons why meditation is important. And I'll talk a little bit about the neuroscience, the meditation, the meditating brain. And then take you through another exercise to put all of this stuff together. Okay? So, first of all, I want to start by talking about what is happening. We live in a very interesting era in history where the human body and all of the senses, and of course the consciousness that is perceiving all of the senses, is being bombarded at the greatest rate ever in history. So here's some data you can see for yourself. So I'm going to talk to you about a few technologies that we've seen in the last maybe 70 years. And I'm going to talk to you about the data of the penetration rate. How long did it take for each of these technologies to reach 50 million users? I feel like I'm having a little bit of an echo. Yeah, thank you. So, first of all, the radio, which is probably one of the oldest mass media inventions that we can think of, took 38 years to reach 50 million users. There's already people smiling in the room. Really? What went wrong there, right? So the telephone took 20 years, the television took 13, cell phones took 12, the World Wide Web took 4, iPods took 3 years, blogs took 3 years, MySpace 2.5. What do you think is next? Facebook took 2 years. What do you think is the punchline? There's one more here. YouTube took 1 year, and then?
Google, Android.
No. Angry Birds took 35 days.
Wow.
And you know, do you know what is really interesting about this technology compared to everything else? These guys basically doled out a free app. It was nothing. I mean, they're not even making money off of this thing. It became viral. So the point of this exercise is that we live at one of the most incredible times in history, where somebody who has a concept can take it and proliferate, can express that to the world, and be significantly making a difference, be heard, with a very small investment of time and energy. But the consequence, the opposite of that, is that we are being bombarded with technologies that seem to take up every moment of our awake state, perhaps even our sleep, encroaching even into our sleep, and I'll talk about that. So it becomes very important how you regulate the sensory stimuli. The body is not used to the evolution, the body's state of being able to adapt is not able to keep up with the pace of the rate of bombardment, the increased stimuli that we're being exposed to. Anybody knows about this? How many times do you feel a buzz in your pocket and you reach out and you tap looking for a phone and there is no phone, but there has actually been a buzz? There's actually a name for this. It's called the phantom pocket syndrome. Phantom pocket vibration syndrome. An example of how our neurology is being messed up because the amount of technological stimuli that we're being exposed to. So, the scientists are talking about the human brain, the human being, is deeply addicted to distraction. I was at a conference a couple of years ago where they talked about, the founder of Zynga was sitting up on stage and speaking. And he talked about this concept of how did these, what did they capitalize on? What research did they do? How did they become this, $7 billion industry at one point? So they talked about this. They said that they did research and they found that the human brain releases dopamine, which is, it's a neurotransmitter which is associated with, happiness. They noticed that the human brain releases dopamine when a human being is supposed to be doing something, and instead of doing something, let's say I'm reading a book, finishing a report, doing my homework, whatever, right? Filing my taxes, and at that moment, if a text, a tweet, a Facebook update, some you got mail message pops up, and instead of focusing on what you're doing, if your mind gets distracted and you yield to the distraction, that is, you actually go there, pick up your mobile device or whatever it is that is distracting you, check your messages, come back a few minutes later, your body releases that happiness hormone called dopamine. These guys are capitalizing on that. We live in an age of distraction, and Silicon Valley and other places in the world are building multi-billion-dollar empires, leveraging that concept of our addiction to distraction. That space that we used to have in our lives when we just stood at a bus stop, or walked to the grocery store, or went for a jog in the park, when we were in tune with ourselves, in tune with Mother Nature, just being, is now being infiltrated every second of it. They find very innovative ways to get into every little gap of time that we have for ourselves. Okay? Now, what does the brain look like, and what does meditation do to counteract some of these effects? So I'm going to show you some research that was done at Harvard Medical School. So this is your brain in meditation when it comes up. So anybody knows which is the most advanced part of the human brain? The prefrontal cortex. So can all of you put your palm up like this? Put your fingers up like, palm up like this. Hold it up. Put your thumb inside, touching your palm. Wrap your fingers around your thumb. Okay? Now let it face forward. Yeah, there you go. So this is exactly, by the way, if you put it next to your head like this is exactly what your brain looks like. So there's a little bit of a miniature version, but at one point in your childhood, this is what your brain looked like. So they've got the brain that's wrapped around, and there's something that connects it to the spinal cord. So the most advanced part of the brain somebody mentioned is this part between your second and your third knuckle. This is called the prefrontal cortex. This is where the executive functions happen within the brain. I'll talk about that. Then you've got the top of the brain, the parietal lobe, and then you've got the thalamus, which is the inside. Then you've got the most primitive part of the human brain, which is also called the amygdala, or the brain stem. So the executive part of the brain, so that's the part of the brain that's sitting there in the green color. This is what makes us different from the animal kingdom. This is the human laboratory. You know, it's an imagination, your laboratory where you're able to make It's a sandbox where you can imagine stuff. Like, for example, at some point, somebody imagined that across this chasm called Marin County and those headlands and then this place called San Francisco, somebody imagined through that gap they will once stand a bridge. Probably they imagined it as some sort of a rope way that people can travel across. Where did it start? It happened in somebody's prefrontal cortex. That's the sandbox. This is where you imagine stuff. This is where you create ideas. This is where we empathize with people and so on and so forth. So in the prefrontal cortex, as much of it as it is a blessing, it could be a curse. Why?
Because it stores bad memories.
It stores bad memories. This is not where the storage happens. This is more to do with the executive functions of the brain. So what?
Distracted.
It's a part of distraction. It's actually the part which is where you're creating thoughts. You're thinking too much.
Racing thoughts.
Yeah?
Racing thoughts.
Racing thoughts. So thinking is a blessing. Overthinking becomes a curse. And therefore, human beings are afflicted with tension, hypertension, etc., and so on and so forth. Therefore, they need to find techniques like coming to meditation centers to find relaxation. You typically do not find dogs and squirrels trying to do meditation. Why? They don't have to deal with this stuff. They don't have the prefrontal cortex without which they don't have this thing of overthinking, and therefore they don't have to figure out how to relax. So, when the brain is meditating, according to this study at Harvard, they say that the brain, the most evolved part of the brain, which is responsible for emotion, self-consciousness, etc., this tends to go offline. So then there's a second part of the brain. This is called the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is the part of the brain that processes your space-time orientation. How many people in this room watched that amazing TED Talk by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor? Raise of hands, please.
Is she the brain scientist?
From? Okay.
Is she the scientist who had a
Brain stroke, correct. She had a hemorrhage.
And she researched it.
Right, and then she actually studies herself as her brain starts to shut down. Exactly. If you haven't watched it, please go home tonight. It's one of the most amazing talks ever on TED. Everybody knows TED?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So,
Sorry, what was her name?
Dr. Jill Bolte, B-O-L-T-E, Taylor. Bolte Taylor.
Yeah, it's one of the featured TED Talks, I think.
Yeah. So she, one day, she's getting ready to go to work. She's a scientist at Harvard. She's getting ready to go to work and she notices some things happening, some strange things happening, and she's not able to remember as she's trying to leave exactly. Her mind starts going off. There's parts of her brain that starts shutting off. She notices her left brain stops working and that right brain is still active. And she notices that it's actually the stroke at the end of the day happened in the parietal lobe. She begins to lose orientation of space and time. So for example, she's trying to reach the phone which is on her wall, a kitchen wall, and she's trying to dial numbers and the stroke kicks in. Those numbers look like squiggly lines. They don't mean anything to her anymore. But you know what? She doesn't care. She's actually feeling pretty good about it. And then the stroke releases. Then she says, oh my God, now I need to call the doctor so that I'm going to go. But wait, what number did I dial? I can't remember. So she has to disconnect and start all over again. So this idea of she also talks about the fact that when she's holding this thing, when she's trying to reach the wall, she's holding onto the phone. When the stroke kicks in, she can't tell where her body ends and the wall begins. Interesting, all right? So that orientation of space-time is lost. And in meditation, scientists talk about this part of the brain activity in this part of the brain beginning to slow down. This is why when you hear about yogis, seasoned meditators from thousands of years, they've always talked about there is a sense of oneness. There is no then, there is no now, there is no you, there's no me. There's only presence, isness. Okay? So That's the parietal lobe. So now coming into the inside of your palm, so we put the thumb. That's the area that's the gatekeeper of the sensory organs. So for example, today, right now, all of you are sitting here listening to a workshop. But you know what? There's many other things. There's the smell of the flowers. There is the lights that are there in the room. There's probably sounds outside that probably could distract you if you let it. Right? There's a temperature that may or may not be comfortable for some of you. Some people it may be, some people it may be not. So the human sense organs, all of them are sending signals to the body. The body is filtering, the human brain is filtering through these sense signals and selecting and saying, right now, I want to focus on what this guy is talking about. Do you realize that is a very complex mechanism of filtering out everything else, and right now, I want to focus on what this guy is talking about. That's the part of the functioning that happens within the thalamus. During meditation, this signals reduces to a trickle. There's a very beautiful quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the ancient texts of the East, in that it says, "In the silence of a quiet mind, like a candle in a windless place, the self will reveal the self to the self." Sit with that for a second. In the silence of a quiet mind, like a candle in a windless place, the self will reveal the self to the self. What are they talking about? What is this candle in a windless place where the self will reveal the self to the self? What is this candle in a windless place?
It's a bright idea.
It's a bright idea. Okay, what else?
Something distracted by nothing.
Something distracted by nothing. What does that mean? Why do they talk about it as being a candle in a windless place? What is the wind? Let's start with that. Sorry? Stimulation. Some sort of a stimulation that leads to a distraction. The stimulation happens through the 5 windows of the human head, so to speak, right? Think about the eyes as stimulation, right? We get stimulated by seeing something, by listening to something, by smelling something, by tasting something, right? Or sensation of touch. So these are the windows through which the inner candle, which is your awareness, begins to flicker and sway. I'm walking down the road, I see this very pretty dress or car or whatever you guys like, a nice baked good, and a desire that didn't exist 3 seconds ago, suddenly I want to go get that. I want some of that. Where did that come from? It's that sensory stimuli, right? So when the human consciousness is stilled through meditation, scientists today are saying what our sages and saints have said for thousands of years, or what's been written in the Bhagavad Gita for 5,000 years, that the stimulation of this incoming information through the senses reduces down to a trickle, so that awareness is absolutely still. And from that state of still awareness, I realize who I am. The self realizes for the self who it is. Okay? Now let's talk about the fourth part. The fourth is the most primitive part of the brain. This is what actually makes us like the animals. This is called the amygdala, or the reticular formation. This is also called the brain stem. This is the part, if you put your wrist together again, it is the part that connects the palm to the forehand. So in this part of the brain, you have 4 functions that are processed here. Anybody has a clue what those things are? At least 2 of the 4, 1 of the 4?
Nerves.
Beg pardon? Emotions. What kind of emotions? Fear, correct. fight, flight, fright. What happens after that?
Relief.
Faint. Relief would be nice. Fight, fright,
Escape.
fight, wait, hold on. Fight, flight, fright, and faint. You get it? So think about it, right? So something comes, a bear appears in front of me. If it's a little bear, try to fight it. A little bit bigger, run the heck out of here, right? And the next one is deer in the headlights kind of thing. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's like, shock. And if it gets beyond that, if it's a polar bear, I faint. So this is the part of the primitive brain that processes all of these four sensations, right? These emotions. So in meditation, this arousal signal, which basically, a very primitive part of the brain, is like, extremity. This arousal mechanism reduces, it dials back, which means it basically starts winding down, shutting off. So you're not reacting, you're not knee-jerk, there's no fright, there's no kind of sudden response. It's a very composed response that you're making to external stimuli. Right? So there you are. So this is what the science of the brain is saying through EEG studies on what meditation does for you. Any questions about this? All right.
Are all of these affected at the same time when you meditate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So are all of these affected at the same time? Just like meditation is a process and you are beginning to basically slow down your senses, you're beginning to slow down your thought activity, you're beginning to slow down the brain activity. So these are all things that will slowly start to take shape. And the way that I experience it from the last 16 years I've done it, it starts with 4 going forward. So the first thing is you stop becoming like this animal instinct, flight, fight, freeze, that kind of thing. And then you slowly start developing more and more things where your space-time orientation takes a little bit longer. Then as you go forward, you become a place where your mind is beginning to become so still that your thought activity is almost come down to a complete still point. It's actually a beautiful way that Deepak Chopra defined meditation. He says that it is the space that exists between one thought and the next. So the longer that space is, the longer you're feeling that sense of bliss. Referred to sometimes in Hindi as sukh. You might have heard, if you read any of Buddha's literature, he talks about sukha. That is a natural state of being, but thoughts actually interfere with your state of being blissful. Okay? So a little bit more on the activity within the human brain. So we talked about EEG, measurement of brain and brain activity. So typically a human brain that's awake generates thought signals that look like that first curve. They're random, all over the place, high amplitude, less space, high frequency. This means lots of thoughts per second, lots of thoughts per minute. So that's called as the awake state. That's when you're probably multitasking. That's called the beta consciousness. This is where the human being gets tired the fastest. Even if you're not doing physical activity, you might have experience of this. Just by having a lot of thought activity, you become very tired. So that's the beta state. The next state is as you're beginning to slow down, you reach a state known as alpha where you start seeing spaces and you start seeing evening out of your thought curve, right? The fluctuations. And then you fall into the next state, which is known as the theta state, deep relaxation. And this is the state when your blood pressure begins to drop and you are able to start spacing out your thoughts. You're really experiencing deep relaxation. Then you get into this last or the most peaceful state known as delta, where you're in a state of close to being thoughtless. So you're holding on. If you have a thought, the thought lingers for a long time. Then you're experiencing a deep state of relaxation. Interestingly, sleep patterns and meditation patterns follow the same trend. Deep sleep gets you to delta, deep meditation gets you to delta. What is the difference? You're awake. Exactly. So here it is something that you are actually consciously taking yourself to that place. Versus in sleep you are letting go of your consciousness. And so what is happening, the difference is that in your conscious state, as you take yourself and you hold the thought, you are basically reprogramming your subconscious mind, which is a very powerful entity. You are really your subconscious mind. Your personality, your reactions, your preferences, your emotions, they're all being driven, dictated by the deeper part of your awareness, which is the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. The conscious mind is like the RAM. The deeper state of awareness is like the hard drive, so to speak. It's the larger volume that dictates truly how you feel, react, do things. Any questions about this? Benefits of meditation, you probably know many of these, but I just want to reiterate. It's proven that meditation reduces your feeling of pain, your tolerance to pain increases with meditation. It reduces the feeling of depression, anxiety, anger, and confusion. Again, why? We talked about the amygdala, the primitive brain. It starts dialing back those signals which are all associated with confusion, anger, etc. Then it increases blood flow and slows down the heart rate. It provides a sense of calm, peace, and balance. It reverses heart disease. There's actually a program which is held in our headquarters in Mount Abu called CAD, Coronary Artery Disease Program, through meditation and diet. Just through meditation and diet, they've shown 70 to 80% reversal of clogged arteries. Just through meditation, no surgical process, no medication, no external intervention, just diet and meditation. It helps control thoughts, feeling a sense of greater amount of energy even at the end of the day, and obviously you feel like your stress is reduced. Okay, now I have another reflection exercise. Any questions before I go there?
In Hindi, they call it samadhi. Is that one of those stages of the brain activity?
Okay, so let me translate. First of all, samadhi is literally, it translates as death, right? So what happens, in fact, some of you who might actually have gone to yoga classes, you do this thing called savasana, where you, at the end of a nice long set of exercise of asanas, you lay down and you are mentally and physically still. So That is a state that yogis refer to sometimes as samadhi, where you're feeling like it's a state of death, where there's really no consciousness of my physical being, where you're truly bodiless. We refer to it in our language. In the Brahma Kumaris, we often refer to that state as soul consciousness. Soul consciousness means I'm not influenced by the physical being. I feel like I'm soul, and I'm looking at each of you as, we use the word brother souls, because soul doesn't have gender. So, samadhi is complete state of soul consciousness that is achieved through meditation. Those of you who've come here Friday nights probably have had some taste into that, because this doesn't happen in your 10 minutes, 20 minutes meditation. It usually requires a nice extended period of time where you completely lose awareness of the body. Somebody could just sweep the body away and you don't care. You exist completely blissful in a state of, sometimes referred to as OBE. Heard of OBE? Outer body experience. Some people have that because of traumatic accidents or surgical complications, etc. But we can actually consciously invoke that state through meditation. Yeah?
How do we know where we get to when we're meditating, which of those levels?
Yeah. See, these are all data that I've pointed out, which is nice and, scientific, and it's good to get validation. But I don't think we should get stuck in, am I in like third state or the fourth state? Is my brain come down to, as the dial arousal signal actually kicked in? See, these are things which are actually, like anything else, it's a very seamless process, right? So then the more you're actually conscious, you're actually activating the thinking faculty and saying, oh, I wonder where I am. You lost it. So you're surrendering that front, prefrontal cortex, and saying, I let go. Again, back to the squirrels and the dogs. Won't worry about what is my thought activity right now. It's only human beings who even think like this. And it's part of our upbringing. We always want to measure stuff. We want to quantify stuff. We want to see how well we've done, how we've scored on the the thought chart. Right? So when you do that, you're actually counterproductive. You're actually slowing down. You're increasing thought activity, which just means the influence of the meditation is disappearing.
Does that also apply like when you're sleeping and you're dreaming, but you know you're dreaming, so you kind of control your dream?
That is a state that is called lucid dreaming. So it's kind of a semi-conscious state. I'm sure you've all experienced this, right? So with semi-conscious state where you're beginning to fall asleep, and you're half awake, and you're looking at your dream, and you come back and say, no, something, that can't be real, till you completely lose yourself into that. So that's that state between the alpha and the theta. But then there comes a point where you lose that, and you go away into the dream, and you can't tell the difference between what is awake and what is reality in sleep. Yeah. What else?
How do you stop yourself from falling asleep while trying to meditate like in a day?
Very good. How long have you been sort of trying meditation? I'm just curious.
Maybe 9 months.
You've been doing this for 9 months. You've been meditating for 9 months. So you probably have a hang of it. So first of all, I'll just give you some very practical tips. One is, if the body is tired and sleep deprived, folks, don't even try it. Go get some sleep first. Why? Because meditation is a form of healing for the body. In which way? You're listening to the biofeedback system in your body. Your body is speaking to you for the first time. Many of us don't have the training. Our schools and colleges and all of our programs in the universities have not taught us how to listen to ourselves. And the moment you start listening to yourself, the immediate needs, if your physical body is going through some trauma, some crisis, some pain, some abnormal functioning, it is going to speak to you. Likewise, the body is also going to speak to you and say, you know what, my immediate need now, right now is not to go into theta, not to get endorphins or whatever else that you're trying to create. I want sleep. And so you got to do that. You got to give it its sleep. Number one. Number two, very important. If any of you have studied yoga carefully, you'll realize yoga is a form of body getting in tune with the mind and mind getting in tune with the source. So in that process, it says that as you still your body, as you give your body what it needs, the mind comes to a still. The essence of all of yoga is one thing. Stiram asanam sukham. Anybody yogic practitioners here? Hatha yoga practitioners? Okay. So if you haven't heard this term, you can talk to your teachers and they should have heard this. Stiram asanam sukham. So the idea of Hatha yoga, you do all these pretzel-like, all these amazingly complicated moves. The idea is to get to a point that in that asana, you're creating a state of stillness where your mind is completely still. And in that stillness, you're experiencing sukham, which means bliss. So all of these yogic practices, there are many forms of bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, hatha yoga, all of these things are coming to the point where you're preparing ultimately for the mind to be absolutely stilled. And in that stillness, one feels the presence of the Supreme Being. And in that presence, one feels the inculcation of bliss. Any other questions?
The duration of meditation matters.
Yes, the duration of meditation matters. Good question. So, like everything else, there will be good days and bad days. And actually, I have 4 ground rules if you've taken any of my workshops. So I'll just say one of my ground rules is, do not judge your meditation as good or bad. It is what it is. It's like your body. Some days you'll be able to do a half-mile marathon with no problem. Another day you'll struggle to go around the block. So depending on all of the things that you have been exposed to, the amount of sleep and all these other things, your mind will also cooperate or not cooperate with you to become silent. But it doesn't matter. The fact that you took those 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is, an hour, that is a way that you've given the time for the mind and therefore the body to heal. Having said that, I do have a minimum recommended dosage. If, for example, if you take 5 minutes every morning, that may not be quite enough. It's better than nothing, but it's not quite enough. The minimum recommended dosage is 20 to 30 minutes to get to some place where you're able to feel a sense of bliss. And like I said before, if you come to our Friday night meditations, you will realize what amazing things 1 hour can do for you. We've had people who walked off the street, who just passing by the center, they come and sit there for the 1 hour. They've never meditated ever before. And they've never felt as good about themselves ever before. In just 1 hour. You had a question?
Time of day.
Good question. Time of day. Yes, well, I have some recommendations, but I also tell you that this is back like the previous question. It could vary depending on multiple criteria. The ancient traditions of the world will tell you that there are 2 times, the 2 twilight hours are the best times to meditate. Right? Sunrise and sunset. There are many things that line up for you to have a very deep experience in meditation at these 2 times. At this center, we practice Raj Yoga, which is really the oldest and the highest form of meditation. And for us, it's very important to do something called Amrit Vela or Brahma Muhurat. You might have heard different terms in different traditions. Islam does that, Sikhism does that. We wake up at a little bit before 4 and we sit from 4 to 5 in meditation. And that's the time. And why? So here let me explain to you why. And that's the time where the universe is very, very still around you, right? The TVs and the radios and the cars and the Harley Davidsons have not yet started creating their ruckus. So both from a human consciousness, everything is silent, and from a nature perspective, everything is very silent. And you, the yogi, are creating this powerful awareness, and not just for yourself, but you're actually injecting, infusing the atmosphere with that powerful vibrations. Thereby you are almost creating positivity into the day you're about to wake up into, walk into. So you're influencing the souls that are sleeping, they're in the subconscious awake, consciousness asleep, influencing nature that you're about to get into.
You mentioned about the silence. A lot of meditation practices use music. Is that what do you think?
So the question is, what do you think about using music to reach silence? So we actually have programs that's called Sounds to Stillness, right? So if you notice that there are multiple, not just sound, but people from ages past, they use multiple stimuli to actually reach that state of slowing down. For example, if you've been to any temple in India, you'll find the agarbatti, that is the incense stick in English. Have you seen, everybody knows what an incense stick is? Right? So the thing that they burn, it's got a fragrance in it. And so they also have visual appeals. For example, why do we love to go and do a sunset meditation? Why do we love to look over a beautiful valley or a sunrise or the ocean? Think about it. So that's all visual techniques to relax. Sounds do the same thing. They do multiple things actually. It creates a sense of euphoria. You can go to a rock concert and have a sense of outer body state, which you will probably, hopefully it's not drug induced. Right? You'll have a sense of really, a high. People dig that stuff. Senses can do that for you. All senses, all 5 senses can do that for you. Now, if you use those senses to get you to the point where you're getting there to get a taste of it, but you're not becoming dependent on them. Dependent on anything. Dependent on the lecture, dependent on the commentary, dependent on the smell, dependent on the fragrance, dependent on the pictures that we have around here, the beautiful soft glow of light that we create in this room. All of these are training wheels. Folks, you've all learned to ride the bicycle at some point. You heard those training wheels. They are support systems to get you to the point to begin to believe that you can actually balance. But the point is that once you begin to balance, you are not dependent on them. You can get rid of them and be able to ride free. And that is the idea, that you don't get stuck with anything. Anything else before we move on to this next meditation? Okay, so let's try this. In this meditation, I ask that you visualize a tiny white light in your forehead, just behind the eyes, just below the brain. Somewhere between the ears, there's this tiny luminescent glow of white light. Imagine that this light has an energy of peace that comes with the glow. And now let us focus this peaceful white light towards the brain. This light fills and surrounds the brain with peace. Now focus the light towards the eyes. From behind the eyeballs, the light fills and surrounds the eyeballs with this energy of peace. Let us send this light towards the nose, the mouth, the teeth, the tongue. The right ear, the back of the head, the left ear. Let us send this light down the throat passage into the chest region. The light touches and surrounds the heart, the lungs. The light fills the stomach, the intestines, the kidneys, the liver, the light goes down through to the hip region. Now let us send this white light down the left leg, starting from the hips down through the thighs to the knees, all the way down to the ankles and the toes. The right leg from the hips all the way down to the toes. Starting from the shoulder, send the light down the left shoulder. Goes down the elbows to the forearms and to the fingers. The right arm from the shoulders to the elbows, to the wrists, palms and fingers. At this point, the entire body is filled with white light. And there's an energy of peace that pervades the entire body. Now imagine if this light glows outside the body like an aura, about 6 inches outside the skin in all directions. Front, back, sides, above and below. This cloak of white light protects the body from any external harm. And the light inside the body heals the body from any ailments. Now let us tune in above to the home of the souls, to the realm of deep peace, the realm of consciousness above the noise and the hustle and bustle of this physical universe. It's like a realm where there's a beautiful sunset. It's a realm beyond the physical dimension of space and time, which has golden red hues. It is like a beautiful sunset, except there is nothing physical in the realm of light. Just sparkling lights. Just like I am a being of light, my brother souls, suspended in that golden red sky, are in a state of complete peace, sweet silence, and absolute stillness. I am there, sparkling with these diamonds in that golden red sky. And just above, I see one beautiful sparkling diamond, constantly emanating unconditional love, unconditional power out, radiating like ripples from a drop of light in a pool of stillness. I tune into this beautiful star, the Supreme, the eternal guide, the eternal companion. And I soak under its divine light. This light of the Supreme Being washes away any trace of darkness within me, the being of light. Any past fears, guilt, trauma, worry about the future. I feel safe. I feel secure. And I feel completely at peace under the presence of this loving light. Now, it's time for me to share this light with my fellow travelers. Just like the moon reflects the rays of the sun, I let the light of the source shine into the world of action. I see the beautiful planet Earth below me. And I send it this healing white light. Just like a cool moonlight that touches everything on the planet Earth. And I ask myself this question: what do I really want in life? What do I really want in life? When you're ready, you can open your eyes. If you want to stay there, you can keep your eyes closed. So, would you like to share what came up?
I reached the point in between the two thoughts where the bliss, I got to the bliss and the light.
Great.
Yeah. And I feel very relaxed, just like it took a tranquilizer.
Great.
Just like that.
What else?
I felt hard keeping thoughts from letting me distract.
Yeah. And that's, it's natural, right? You're going to have, it's a practice of slowing down to the point where you can slow down enough where the thoughts don't bother you anymore. So, to this question, what exactly do you want in life? What came up for that? Yeah,
I want peace in all of my relationships, be a beautiful place to be.
good,
I want to stay with God.
great.
I wanted that peace to not end.
You want to stay with that peace. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tara.
I want to be in the presence of love and to share it. But then I immediately felt really fragile. The thought of sharing scared me.
A little bit more light into the dark space. There's some past fear. That's what that whole exercise is about, to let the dark space be left with nothing but light, flush. That's why we use the Divine Being. Good, you're getting there. What else came up? How do you feel right now? Anything?
Mind is really clear.
Powerful, clear. There's like a group of people who are not saying anything. They're just looking at me as if I spoke Yiddish. All right. Okay, folks, I want to wrap this session. Some bullet points, some takeaways. So, to become a master of your own mind, be ready to let go. Everything comes, everything goes. The more I hold on, the more I create pressure, which creates tension, which creates anxiety, which creates stress. Next, everything that I am experiencing in my life, I am responsible for it. Not Governor Brown, not Obama, not the Fed, somebody else, right? I am responsible for everything that I am feeling. The biggest leakages, the one is that you have the ingestion or the accumulation of positive energy through this practice, through places like this. The two things that are going to sap you of your positive energy, getting angry and wanting respect. Think about it for yourself. How quickly these two things plug or put a hole into that reservoir of peace. Finally, where your attention goes, your energy flows. Where your energy flows, that is what is going to grow. So if you keep thinking and worrying and complaining about what you don't want in life, guess what you're doing? You're manifesting that. You are giving it energy to stay and actually grow. So think about things that you love. Think about things that you really cherish about life. 20 minutes meditation every day helps you to give the clarity to understand even what is it that you really love. So meditate for 20 minutes every day. And like I said, make time to remember what you love, because if you don't, your neighbors are not going to do that for you, and I guarantee your boss is not going to do that for you. Ask yourself in your meditation, this could be a meditation itself. Ask yourself, what do you want this life to be about? If you don't, life will quickly pass you. And what a waste regretting about this when you're sitting or sleeping in a position where you can't really move anymore, and then wonder, what has this life been about? This is a gift that I've experienced in my journey. One of the most beautiful things is finding like-minded spirits to hang out with. They will inspire you, they will share things with you, they will help you to enjoy this journey. The opposite works the exact converse of this. Unlike spirits, drain each other of their energy. Anybody has experience with that? Yeah? Everybody? I can see your heads nodding. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So that's it, folks. I write a weekly blog. Some of you are on my daily text message. Tara is one of them. I put it on WhatsApp, so if you want to get onto that, send me an email with your number. And I have a bunch of these recordings online. You can go to the website, beingbeforedoing.us, and there's audio.beingbeforedoing, there's a video.beingbeforedoing, and there is a blog.beingbeforedoing. Any other final questions before we call it a night?
When is the next lecture?
Next Monday, no?
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
next Monday. But I'm doing one tomorrow night if anybody wants to follow me to Novato. Do you all know about our retreat place? We have this beautiful place in Novato. Anybody knows about it? Nobody knows about it? Okay, somebody knows about it. We have this beautiful place up in Novato, about 23 miles up north from here. It's called Anubhuti Meditation Retreat Center. When you're walking out of here, on your right-hand side, you'll see a green three-folded flyer. And that flyer, or that little leaflet, gives you the program for the day retreats, the weekend retreats, and the workshops that happen at this retreat center that we have in Novato. That's a residential place where you can actually go live there and eat there and all of that. Yes, I'm doing a workshop tomorrow night called Loving Without Losing, 7 to 8:30 p.m. So yeah, so tomorrow or next Monday?
Next Monday, I don't have a car.
Oh,
Get over there.
no. Next Monday is here. Tuesday, tomorrow is over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Will the Loving Without Losing talk be in San Francisco at any point?
Yes, I believe it's happening in February. Do you know the date, Sister Sukanya? It's on the flyer as well, yeah.
Second Monday, I think.
The second Monday of February, probably, something like that, yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned all the advices, and how much investment do you think it takes to get started with that? And what level of determination you need to have to actually make daily practice?
So the first thing is that how much time do you need to dedicate was the first part of question. And that I would say, I already mentioned 20 minutes every day. But first of all, the investment that I would ask you to make is you come here, we offer something called the Foundation Course in Raja Yoga. That's a 5-part series that gives you a basic introduction to how to meditate. And I find that to be like the framework for you can build your own. I mean, that's only going to give you the tools, but then you can develop something with those tools of your own as you go through life. But these support systems, or these basic framework will give you the platform upon which you can create your own practice. So that's, you can look up again on the calendar. It's either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday series. Yeah. And then the dedication that's something that it's an interesting thing, right? The part of the thing is the determination is in a way that's a good thing, that to take the discipline to come here. So there's a few things I suggest. One is create a time, create a space, find like-minded people, and get the toolkit, right? So these are the 4 things I would say. After that, when you have these 4 things in place, actually the concept of determination actually is counterproductive. It's almost you're kind of sitting there and kind of letting go into that space in your own mind, which is the center of all that stillness. That's the first part. And the second part is taking that stillness and then turning upwards. So right, first thing is you're turning inwards, and then you're turning upwards.